Good afternoon, everyone. It's great to be back. I'm Jessica Sontag, the Director of Student Services for Hinckley Big Rock School District. With me today, I have Beth Ferguson, our school district psychologist, Mallory Wassman, our elementary social worker, and Tara Neidig, our secondary social worker. If you're just joining us, we are in week 6 of a book talk, Building Resilience in Children and Teens. We have covered so far 4 of the C's that he talks about in the 7 C's of resilience. This week, we're going to be talking about contribution. And contribution is really another critical C in the development of resilience. And here's what Dr. Ginsburg says. He says, confident young people who recognize their competencies, feel connected to people, and have strongly rooted character are poised to contribute to the world. So those are the C's we've talked about so far: confident, competent, connected, kids with character. Contribution may flow from the other C's, but those who take active steps to contribute will gain experiences that prepare them to thrive. Parents and communities who ensure ample opportunities for children to contribute will build the next generation of leaders.
It's a powerful C. You know, one of the things that we had highlighted on that very first page is that contribution and contributing prepares kids to thrive.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that piece, in terms of, it's sort of the action piece around competence and confidence, and then the future C's around controlling and coping. But this is a piece where, you know, it's sort of like, it's action. It's what flows out of that inner sense. It's what really struck me in this. I was very excited by this little teeny chapter because I think it's really critical.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he also, he kind of talks about that contribution really gives our kids a meaningful sense of purpose. When they are giving back, when they're contributing in some way, they feel that sense of purpose, which gives them the direction and makes them feel part of the bigger connection too, I think.
Yeah.
And he just highlights how much this C, or how much contribution just strengthens all of the other ones. And so, I know during our live discussion that we had this week after our last podcast was, we were trying to kind of come up with analogies for it. And I loved, Beth, you said during our live that it kind of feels like they're, the Jenga blocks of life, and I feel like this is another perfect, this contribution fits perfectly with that analogy, and that, contribution just really strengthens that foundation that we need for the tower to not tip.
Yeah.
But too, this is one that you can't really teach that. You got to let them go through it on their own. You got to let them figure out where they can contribute and how they contribute and how it is for somebody else. All you can do is show them how you do it, and be an example. There's not really a way to teach them to do that without showing them.
Yeah, right? I love it. I think it's a little bit later in there. He makes the point of saying this isn't about building that scholarship resume or the look what I've done, but it's a life resume. I mean, and more than that, I think anybody who has done service finds that they end up getting more out of it than maybe what they feel like they even put into it. And although I agree, you can't sit down and teach kids to value that, I think that there are things that we as adults can provide all across the developmental spectrum that begins to help shape their openness to how they contribute.
Mm-hmm. Sure. He talks about just simple chores, even from a really young age, giving them that purpose, and that that we're counting on you to do this in our household or wherever. And he talks about how important that is at different stages, that they learn that responsibility in order to contribute to your house, your house community.
Right. Even just through family meetings and getting our kids to share their ideas about things that we're doing. As simple as, planning that weekly meal menu. What are the things that they would like to see on that? How can they contribute to the greater good of the family? All those little things. You're right, Tara. They really help the kids develop this sense of contribution, but also a sense, again, of who they are and how they fit into the bigger schema of the world that they're in.
Yeah, I love that, giving them the opportunities to contribute, no matter how old, right?
I also love too that he, even though he doesn't directly say it, he kind of always goes back to sending a message or providing an example on ways to get out of the way. And I loved that he just reminded, as I was reading it, he reminded me as a mom of a little one that who doesn't always, if she is contributing, it's not always done maybe how I would have done it if I would have done it myself, but that I can't take that away from her, and that that really, if she's wiping down the counter and I have asked her to do that and she doesn't do it great or well, that how I respond to that versus just taking it and wiping it down better, or saying to her something along, like, oh, thanks so much, I really appreciate how you helped me out with that, that was a huge help, and making sure that you're getting out of the way. He just reminds us of that.
Yeah.
On that paragraph, I actually made this little arrow, and I wrote, that goes for spouses too. Because sometimes I put my husband out of doing things because I'm like, you're not doing it right, or I'll just do it. I'll just take care of it. And so I thought, true for husbands as well.
I think one of the things that he talked about with contribution that really resonated with me having teenagers is really about, in our culture right now, kids are so focused on things like, are they wearing the right name brand shoes? Do they have the best electronics? Do they have the right makeup? What kind of car are they driving? All these materialistic things that are helping kids to identify if they are good enough or not. And really, he talks about, to put it into perspective, parents providing opportunities where our kids can really give rather than receive, and how much better that feels for them, and how it helps them to really see that the world doesn't truly revolve around them, doesn't owe them anything, that we are all part of this one big community, and we all have to both have some give and take in order to make our world continue to go round. I think that was really key in helping to think about, how do we, yes, the materialistic things matter to teenagers for sure, but how do we help them see beyond themselves? And that really kind of speaks to the development of character as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think that this resonated quite a bit with me because, and I don't even know if y'all know this, but I need to give context for anyone that wouldn't know this. So excuse me for a second, but my oldest son and daughter-in-law, actually, it's how they met, went on an 11-month mission trip that was really designed. The mission part of it was secondary. It was really designed to take these young adults and put them in community and show them what it's like to live and serve out of that community. And the difference that I can't really speak to my daughter-in-law because I didn't know her, but the difference in my son in terms of being able to kind of know who he was and the importance of his role in this bigger community, it was just remarkable. There was nothing that I could have done that would have, it's like it fast-tracked years of life experience. And as a matter of fact, my daughter-in-law actually works at a private high school, where they have a missions department that sends kids out for 5 times a year on different mission trips. And her job that they pay her for is storytelling. She's teaching her kids to tell the story of their experience through giving, and it really he makes a point in here, and I think that's when it really resonated with me. He talks about a high school from our area, Barrington, Illinois, very well-to-do suburb for any non-Illinois people, and the high school takes a trip to an Indian reservation in South Dakota. And when the author interviewed these kids, their takeaway was, we got so much more out of this by sharing stories with a culture that's very different from ours. And I think you can't bottle that. You can't write that in a book and have people, go back through the steps of teaching that. And I am so thankful that he included this chapter, and even though a part of me wondered why it didn't come at the end, it totally makes sense that it comes in the middle.
Sure.
Because this isn't the sum total of these C's and then you contribute. It's a part of the whole process that's developing, and can be a 3-year-old that's cleaning the counters, or I think I told you guys yesterday, we paid our sons to pick up our dog poop. Yeah, that was a family thing, but we felt like that was going the extra mile that they, so it's an important C that I think that we often don't attend to.
I think, as Tara talked about in the beginning too, some of that modeling and showing our kids, my husband and I had an opportunity to go to Rwanda, and serve there for 12 days, in 2012. So 12. But our kids were pretty young. And I remember, so we went, right? And what I experienced there was, this was a culture of people that had far less than we do. They were very fortunate if they had running water. I watched people trying to infiltrate electricity and internet access into their communities, which they didn't want, they didn't need. They were happy, they were reliant on the earth for everything they needed. And watching the young take care of the even younger. And we have pictures with 7-8-year-olds walking around with their infant siblings, and tied up in their little back things. I don't know, like the little blanket around. They just they're so cute. But the way that society worked, that community worked, was it was all interdependent, and everybody counted on each other. Everybody had a job. Everyone contributed, from the very young to the very old, and they were so happy. And my kids weren't very old at that time, but I remember sending them pictures and FaceTiming with them of, look at this. Can you imagine? You're this age. Can you imagine doing this? And then we had the opportunity, about 6 months after we were home, some of them came to visit us. And so my girls got to speak to them, about what life was like in Rwanda. And it was a truly life-changing experience for me. I think everybody should have the opportunity to go on a missions trip like that. But so everything he says in here, even as an adult, it resonated. It was life-changing for me, as I said, to really see and appreciate what we have, and know that really I left there. I thought I was going there to help people and talk about faith and whatnot, but I left there with so many more lessons that I went. So very similar to the Barrington story. But I think when we're doing it right, and it's not an exercise in like, I have to log 200 community service hours for my high school, it feels really good to contribute in those ways.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think
go ahead.
No, because I'm going to switch the topic. So go ahead.
Oh, okay. No, I was just going to say that's where when he talks about starting as young as you can with kids, it sets their mindset towards, that's just a natural part. That's a natural outflow of what what I have in me. And instead of, oh, now you're 10, it's time to start giving back and volunteering. I'm amazed at the stories during this time of kids that are raising money or are going, to their older neighbors and asking if they can, do stuff or bring stuff to them. And either we have really conscientious parents making kids do that, or people are raising kids to begin thinking about others at a young age. So, your turn.
No, and I mean both of them segue because it's I say switching topics. It's all related. It's all contribution. But I really also thought it was one of those pop out things that he says is when he says when we do this, that children will learn that giving and receiving or sharing during times of plenty and asking for help during difficult times are normal, healthy. I love that he says healthy things for humans to do. It's healthy to ask for help or receive help. And it's just as much as it is to give when you are able to. He says, we want our children to know that just as they give, they will receive if more misfortune hits. And that is going to help build that resiliency when there are those tragedies or those misfortunes in their life. And I loved that he really highlighted that it's healthy and it's normal and it's a part of life to be on both ends of the spectrum.
Yeah.
So, together. And and if we're starting young, they're gonna have that as adults and carry throughout.
Sure.
That's such an important message. I think even or especially for girls, maybe I'll say girls because I'm raising girls, and Beth and Tara maybe you can push back with having boys, but I think that we want to encourage our girls to be strong, independent, and I don't need help from anyone, and I really dominate their way through to push past this, like the gender barriers or the helpless girl figure. But there's that message, but really the clear message should be, again, in order for our community to function and be one of success, we all need to give and take. We need to take help. We need to give support. We need to recognize when we don't have to do it on our own. And I think I am a person that really, it's hard for me to ask for help, and I really don't like to take help. Right? Because I don't know what it is about me with that. But so I have been thinking about how am I modeling that for my teenage girls as well, both through my job and, professionally and personally. And what does that look like? And sometimes you might not need help, but somebody wants to help you and it will make them feel better. And it gives them an opportunity and a place to contribute. And so how do we let people help us too, and knowing that is healthy as well?
That's a really good point.
And a hard question.
Yeah. Because that would build competence and confidence in other people as well.
Right.
I think it's a little easier to imagine modeling that for a younger child. I'm not minimizing adolescence. I've been there. But I would think it would be, from a parent standpoint, it would almost be scary to be that vulnerable with a human who might use it to get back at you. But I still think that they, even if it's not acknowledged right there in the moment, they see that vulnerability and they log it, and it stays with them in a way that they can access later on when they're thinking about their response to a particular thing. Sorry, I have dogs that are floating in front of me.
Well, I think vulnerability is a good word. That's a good word too. Like we have to model, as Mallory was just reading from the book there, we have to model that it's okay to be vulnerable. It's healthy. It's healthy to put ourselves out there. And again, that natural give and take. Yeah.
Yep.
When you talk about wanting to raise strong-willed girls, it reminds me of that meme, and I'm going to butcher it, but maybe during the live, I'll find it before that. But it's that one where it's like, maybe raise, it's a play on that, maybe raise strong girls and know them, but maybe not in my household and not until you're until you're growing out of my house.
That's good.
I love that.
That's
like,
funny.
I feel like that is my day-to-day.
Right?
I always like to go. He's so good in the book. Again, Dr. Ken Ginsburg. He always gives us kind of like the cautionary tale too. Like, here are the ways that this is really good and what you should be thinking about. But then he also says, but while you're thinking about this, here's some ways that you can be cautious. So Mallory kind of hit on this with the chores and her little one, saying, if they're contributing, be careful how you respond to their contribution when it might not be the way you want it to do. He also says nothing discourages kids' efforts more than an adult who steps in and says, let me do that for you. If children can do it themselves, let them do it. Again, that's the getting out of the way. That's a little less subtle way of saying it. Here, when he says, let them do it themselves, it's just really critical that we think we're helping our kids by doing things for them. But really, we could be discouraging them and making them feel like their contributions don't matter. And even when it's things they can and should be doing for themselves, if we're just trying to be like, let me take care of that, I'll take something off your plate, it can cause them to question, well, their competency, but also, do they matter?
Mm-hmm.
He also talks about, some of our agencies and organizations do the scholarships and the volunteer awards, and they might give you like cash incentives. And those are nice, for sure. But we don't want to encourage our kids, as we said, we don't want their contributions or volunteerism to be directly always tied to the forced contribution, if you will, right?
Yeah.
So just those cautionary terms too, as we leave this and start thinking about, how do we get our kids to be better contributors? It is not by setting them up to, go do all these volunteer things so many hours a week and drop them off and say you will do it. That's not the way to do it.
Right.
Oh, Sarah's clock is going off. The time has come.
Any other stories or thoughts you guys have on this idea of contribution?
I know at our school, there are, I think it was our third graders go to, is it food serving children?
Mm-hmm.
And so, I think we were kind of talking about that a little bit too. What is the, when you say you don't necessarily want it to be because you told them to, or want it to be because, when you raise $50 for this cause, you get a yo-yo, and when you raise $100, you get a yo-yo and a movie pass, whatever. I think we were talking about feed starving children and kind of just how they're in there, they're doing it, and they also see kind of the product. They're able to see all of the steps of their contribution. And I think, how can we be mindful and highlight what the product is, whether that product is actually, money, or whether the product is the wiping of the counter. How can we then highlight, how, my house is clean, my counter is clean, and that makes me feel so good, or, I don't know, some
Right.
what language that we use, or the things that we say to highlight that end product, and not it just being something tangible, but how you feel, or what that contribution actually did for you or for somebody else.
Right. The why.
The why.
And exposing them. Yeah, exposing them to that they maybe don't know about.
Right.
Yeah.
And just bringing it to the forefront.
I think that serving children does that exceptionally well, because they make you sit through they have you sit through a video that shows the kids that the food is going to, and why it's so important that they get this particular kind of food. And it really, I think, transforms we've done it as a family event, and all ages can participate in it, but it really transforms that the purpose that you find yourself in when you're there, when you know that it's something bigger than you. And again, you're contributing to a community that's more than what's right in front of you.
Right. Well, I'm going to just read one more line from this chapter before we leave. And I think it's just a good lasting reflection comment. We want children to become adults who can seek help without shame. If they have the experience of service, they will have learned a vital life lesson. It feels good to give. It's rewarding to help other humans. People who contribute to others' well-being don't feel burdened or put out upon. They feel honored and blessed to have been in the right place at the right time, maybe with the right training. I think that sums up everything that we talked about.
It does.
It's a really good quotable chapter.
This one was. I feel like we did a lot more direct reading. Hey, join us live on Tuesday afternoon, listeners, 3:00. We'll put the link in the description below. We hope to see you there. It's always fun to talk a little bit more in depth about specific stories and just how we're doing life around this sea. Next week, join us. We'll be talking about getting a grip on stress and how to cope during these turbulent times. So we hope to see you back then. Thanks so much.
Bye.